Chapter 14. Boiling Point. Christ, I can't take much more of this shit, Luke complains to me at the start of our shift. Seriously, how is it that Newman can get his niece a job here and get her on a higher pay grade than the rest of us? Didn't anyone at fucking payroll ask a few questions about that? Beats me. He definitely knows a trick or two, the fat slimy bastard, I reply as we wash and dry cutlery, a job usually reserved for the restaurant girls, but which Newman gives to us on occasions where it's quiet and we look like we have little to do. I try my best to look busy most of the time at the club, but damn that Newman. For someone who spends so much of his time dodging work and shirking his responsibilities, the bastard sure does have a keen eye for when other staff have it easy at work. His niece, of course, is usually spared this kind of crap though, and given the easy jobs. Laziness must run in the family or something. I think we all reach a certain point in our lives, sometimes be it professional or personal, at which we just think to ourselves, what's the point? As in, what's the point in going on when no matter what we do, how hard we work or what we try, it all just seems to end the same? When the rotating door keeps spinning and all the dregs from the ranks of the unemployed keep getting jobs at the club like they're the MVPs. Here's Newman, after all, a fat, nasty-looking, passive-aggressive twit of a man who avoids work the same way I'm pretty sure he avoids exercise and dodges the customers in the same way he dodges salads. And yet, who is it that gets put in charge of gaming, the most important part of the club since it's where the real money comes in every night? He does, of course. It seems like I'm not the only one reaching their boiling point tonight, as I cashier and Luke works behind the bar and tries to figure out the new Kano system. It soon becomes apparent that everything is not working quite the way it's supposed to. Why? Because a few people are actually winning, and not just a few bucks here or there, but some are winning 20, 50 and $100 each repeatedly. This is a disaster. As I hear the intolerable and unending chatter in Greek coming from Vula's machine, punctuated by the odd curse word from Angry Joe, it becomes all too apparent that a few of the mug punters are reaching their limits tonight too. It would seem that Angry Joe is the only one who isn't winning at Kano during this bizarre winning streak. Now, after he's decided not to buy some tickets and has gone back to playing the pokey machines instead, the streak is back on, at least for everyone else. I guess some people just have no luck sometimes. If it were anyone else, maybe they'd just take it in their stride and say, "Oh, well, tonight's not my night, I guess." But no, not this guy. He has to make a fucking song and dance out of it, complete with lots of swearing as though he's in a musical directed by Quentin Tarantino. Maybe you should go. Out and offer Joe a coffee, I suggest to Luke, who looks at me puzzled for a few moments, since this is the most entertainment we've had for a while, and he, like me, clearly doesn't want it to stop. But I just clear my throat, and with a slight incline of my head, I indicate up at the television screens monitoring the machines, and he seems to get the point. Always good to be seen doing something. I go back to the drudgery of handing out change, processing tickets, and listening to the same old dull conversations about how much I've lost, and this hurts and that hurts and their fucking doctor's appointments. And I just want to reach over the counter of the cage and slap some common sense into them. But I hold back. Just in my head, I compose a little haiku about most of my interactions with these miserable bastard mug punters. 5 syllables on the first line, 7 on the second, and 5 on the third. How are you today? I have lost all my money. Fuck off, you wanker. This last part is usually said under my breath as they are leaving the scene, but then it's the thought that counts, or so I've been told. If I was a believer in the concept of karma, I'd argue that most of the old mug punters' health problems aren't due to just old age, they're due to a lifetime of petty greed and chasing money they never earned. But I'm not. I look upon the old weathered faces at their machines, and it occurs to me that karma, like luck, is just something that is spit out as randomly as the little symbols on these godforsaken machines that have them so hooked in the first place. As Newman passes me behind the bar, I start to say something about the Keno system being not quite 100% right tonight, and he holds up a hand and just brushes me off. Clearly, he has bigger things to deal with. He mumbles something about this cloudscape software that's got him so engrossed at the moment, and then he is back safely in the womb. I mean his office. Pretty much the same thing, really. Kate reckons he's been ducking out the back of the office a lot lately, but not to go to the kitchen for food. Rather, to sneak out the back of the venue through a door that's next to the cool room where we store a lot of the wines and drinks. If it's true, that's a dangerous game. He's smash. What the hell was that? The noise tears through the silence of my thoughts, interrupting them as Luke rushes over to the bar. "You gotta get security over here pronto!" Luke exclaims. "It's bloody Angry Joe. He's lost it completely. He smashed the screen of the machine." And as I pick up the phone to dial security, I feel my mind wandering and my imagination taking over once more, and a simple, violent incident becomes instead a dramatic emergency. "Yeah," I say, in a worried tone down the line. "Is this the emergency line? We got a situation here. We're going to need police down here. Maybe a SWAT team or two if you can spare them. Hell, just send everybody. I've never seen anything like this before." In the background, I can hear a low rumbling sound and then the odd scream and sounds as if someone is beating their chest with their fists. There's a loud clinking noise as terrified patrons drop their little cups full of coins and run out of the place shrieking in absolute terror. Then the next thing I know, one of the machines gets pushed over and Angry Joe is coming towards us at the cage. And boy, does he look pissed about something. It's times like this I'm thankful for the bulletproof reinforced glass between me and the mug punters. As Angry Joe seems to swell and grow in size, so too. His white shirt and purple slacks begin to tear at the seams. He is grunting as his body, arms, legs and fists keep growing, and he fixes me with an intense stare. "You better not make me angry, Mike," Joe is saying. "You wouldn't like me when I'm angry." And before I've really thought about it, the answer has come out of my mouth. Stupid me. "Well, for fuck's sake, Joe," I cry out in desperation. "That's pretty much all the time, isn't it?" I guess I don't always know the right thing to say at the right time, because Angry Joe then begins turning a bright green color from head to toe as he stands there shirtless with his pants in tatters, looking mean and possibly homicidal. Amazingly, he has grown to twice the height of the machines. "Look," I say loudly with my hands up in self-defense, palms facing him. "If this is about the Kano, it's a new system. Sometimes there are bugs and glitches and stuff, you know how it is. Why, I'm sure your luck will come back before you know it." Of course, inwardly, I'm thinking to myself just how lucky the others are around him to still be alive, but that's something else entirely. The other mug punters are fleeing here and there as Angry Joe goes on a rampage, beating his fists against the screens of the machines, tearing down signs and knocking the machines over as if they weighed next to nothing at all. God help us if the crazy bastard makes it out into the car park after all my car is parked there. As a shrieking Vula runs past Angry Joe, she screams after her, "I keep telling you, Joe, you got to work within the system. This not the way I telling you." But unluckily for Vula, she's not quite fast enough, and as Angry Joe reaches out a huge green arm and snatches her up into it, she is yelling all the more loudly. "I've heard about enough of your bloody system, woman." Angry Joe screams as he lifts her up off the ground effortlessly and begins squeezing her body into a tight ball. "Now, Joe," I say, as I cower behind the cashier's counter, "just think for a moment about what you're doing. You don't want to hurt Vula." Shit. Can't believe I just said that. Still, Angry Joe is barely listening to me as he looks over and a big grin spreads across his huge green face. "Angry Joe smash," he says, and lines Vula up with the glass doors at the club's exit and kicks her as she smashes through the darkened skylight in the ceiling. "I'm going to..." I barely hear Vula scream as she hurtles through the glass skylight and sailing into the night sky. "What do you think she was saying?" Luke says beside me at the cashier's counter as we both duck out of sight from Angry Joe's violent and mean stare. "Don't know," I reply, but knowing her, probably that she's going to another venue. Given how hard Angry Joe kicked her, it might just be one on the other side of the city. As I glance briefly over the counter, then my veteran friend, think Alfred was his name, makes an appearance then and pulls a service revolver from a coat pocket. "I've been saving this one for a rainy day," he says, as he admires the weapon, then takes aim and fires, hitting the Hulk-like Angry Joe square in the back. And for all the good it does, it might as well have been a mosquito biting him. We hide back down behind the counter again as a gaming machine is thrown over the top of the bar and lands mere feet away from us. "Fuck!" Luke exclaims. "They don't pay me enough for this shit." "Budget cutbacks," I reply to the sounds of shattering glass and twisting metal in the background as Angry Joe begins pounding the walls as well. And it seems as if the very foundations of the building around us are beginning to shake. I kept telling management cashiering staff needed something for self-defense during busy and potentially dangerous bingo and members' nights, but do they listen? No. And just then, as the machine gun-toting SWAT team of my imagination turn up and begin firing into his enormous body, I feel something tugging at me and pulling me from this violent scene. What? I blink and everything is back to normal again, well, almost everything. "Is security there or not?" Luke asks, and all I can hear is the dial tone. "God damn it," I say down the line. "I swear if that lazy prick is at the fucking desk trying to break his Candy Crush high score, there's going to be more than a machine screen getting broken around here. Can you please go and get him? I'll try and find Newman." Whoever it was that said good help is so hard to find these days wasn't kidding. When you're surrounded by people too lazy to do their job and mug punters who know they can pretty much get away with anything sooner or later, something is going to give. Just then, Newman makes a cameo appearance from out of his office, and he looks around like a fat little wombat that has just poked his head out of his hole. "Is everything all right out there?" Newman asks. "Thought I heard something break and wondered if maybe one of the girls had dropped a tray of glasses or something." At this point, Luke returns with security beside him. Pradeep, or should I say, pretty deep, because that's the level of shit he's in right now given his current predicament. "Anger," Luke begins to say, then catches himself. "Joe's smashed one of the screens of the machines. I took him out a coffee and was talking to him, and he was getting really worked up about not winning at the Keno when everyone else seemed to be. Next thing, he's just smashed the bloody thing." Newman's jaw just drops as he hears this. "Bloody hell! Everyone's been winning on Keno? How much are we talking about here?" Yes, I think to myself, Newman, the club, management, and their wonderful sense of priorities. For all we know, Angry Joe is out there, having some kind of episode or breakdown and possibly doing what he did to the machine, to some unlucky mug punter, and what are we concerned about? Fucking money, that's what. Oh well, Keno is Newman's problem. Let him deal with the consequences. "I think Kate or Chloe was out on the floor as well," Luke adds. "To be honest, I'm a little worried about her safety with him out there." I look over at Luke and can't help but smile a little. It seems I've taught him well by example. Newman is about to rush out there, but Luke says, "Can you hold the door a moment? I think I left my phone in the office." Newman, with bigger things to worry about, holds the door open as Luke slips inside and then all but makes a dash for the machines. With little to occupy me work-wise, I watch the screens then as Pradeep and Newman do their best to placate an irate Angry Joe as he sits at the machine fuming. God, these management bastards just have no balls at all, I'm thinking to myself. Do we really need his money that badly that we can avoid the absolutely obvious? Do we have to wait until he actually assaults one of us out on the gaming floor before we call the cops? I suppose they probably have insurance at the club for these kinds of incidents and accidents, but still. What do you get for destruction of private property anywhere else, I wonder? Here at the club, I'm sure Newman is busy negotiating some kind of plea, bargaining with him. In other words, he's pleading with Angry Joe not to do it again in very strong terms, or he'll revoke his free dessert privileges. Yeah. What a fucking badass. Pretty sure if this was anywhere else outside of the club, that is back in the real world, he'd be doing hard time for this depending on his record, or at the very least a suspended sentence and a huge fine. The thought of seeing Angry Joe in this season's Prison Grey puts a smile on my face as I stand there. That and the idea that inside the big house, the first fight he got into may very well be his last. Or that a disagreement between inmates is usually settled with a shiv between the ribs. When you're already doing a life stretch, there's only one way to assert yourself. Then, right at that moment, the music system kicks in. Newman's much-hyped new Cloudscape program, and the song that first begins playing is Sonny and Cher's I Got You Babe. As god-awful a song as it is, though, I take a moment to appreciate the irony of its timing. I go back to my job then, dull, boring and monotonously repetitive, as the old mug punters come up to me with winning Keno tickets and change. If it's one thing I've learned in this job, it's that not even the most extreme violence can tear these old pricks away from their beloved damn machines. What would it take, I wonder, for them to run screaming out of the building and actually stop playing? A fire, perhaps. A flood of biblical proportions, gun-toting psychopath who's lost a few dollars too much and decides to go postal. Halfway through a particularly brutal Phil Collins song, Luke reappears from out of the office as I'm standing there looking over my paperwork, and it occurs to me that something is not quite right. "What were you up to in there?" I ask as I look up at him, and Luke just shakes his head. "Dunno what you mean, Mike," Luke replies and winks. "What I mean," I reply, "is that Newman's office is one of the few places in the club, funnily enough, that doesn't have even one video camera recording in there. And I know for a fact that you keep your phone on you." "Well," Luke replies, and lowers his voice a bit, "I made some changes to that Cloudscape program, and I kinda used Newman's credit card to buy something online." "Right," I reply with a nod. "Hey, aren't those Keno girls supposed to be coming in tonight to help out with a promotion or something?" Luke grins. "Yeah, tonight. Course they might not be in next week." "Why would they?" I begin to say, and then shake my head. "You know what? I don't want to know." "Yeah, you do," Luke teases. "No, I really don't," I reply more insistently this time, and return my attention to my paperwork. "It's called plausible deniability, as in, when the shit goes down, I will know nothing at all about it. It'll make lying about my involvement that much easier." Unbelievable! And with such an exclamation that could only mean Vula's presence, I look up and wear my fake customer service smile for the occasion. "That man," Vula is saying as she shakes her head and rolls her eyes. "How his wife Adele she put up with him, I never know." "Yeah, I'm thinking to myself because you're such a fucking pleasure to deal with, aren't you? I tell him not to be breaking machine and he call me a fat wog. I worry little bit what he do next, you know," Vula says then in her usual clipped and broken English, and I just nod in agreement. "Absolutely," I say in my best, most non-committal voice. "Your safety is our #1 concern, Vula. And of course, if you have any concerns at all, then you should definitely take them up with my supervisor. I'm sure he'd be only too happy to sit down with you, talk them through and alleviate any concerns you may have." "Yeah," Vula says, her eyes lighting up then. "You know what, Mike? I do that tonight maybe." After I've given Vula her change, and she's left, Luke says, "I love the way you're so concerned with the customers." "Of course," I reply. "When you're out on the floor helping Chloe, be sure to mention to them all that if they have any concerns about their safety or well-being while at the club, they should definitely bring them up with Newman." "Absolutely," Luke agrees with a grin. "I mean, he's the right bloke for the job, ain't he?" I just nod, and we wouldn't want our valued customers to feel neglected. Say, when are these Keno girls getting in tonight? The restaurant's not busy, and I need something young and sexy to ogle for a change. And in answer to my question, I spot a young blonde girl and a brunette in tightish black pants and white shirts with the Keno logo emblazoned across their perky, impressive-looking breasts. Now that's product placement right there. A little while later, as I cashier, Luke comes up to the cage and seems anxious. "Mike, do you reckon we could swap for a bit?" he asks me. Angry Joe's still out there, and frankly, the guy's starting to creep me out. He's still out. I begin to say, what the fuck did... You know what? I don't care. I don't want to know. I have some spray-on deodorant behind the counter I keep for those long and tiring shifts. If he tries any shit with me, it'll be going right in that fucker's eyes. Appreciate it, Luke says as I open a door beside the counter. And we switch. He takes cashiering duties and I begin my rounds out on the gaming floor. From time to time, I experience that most bizarre phenomenon I'm pretty sure is unique to the field of slots gambling. A mug punter will come up to me and, after having counted up their coins in a little plastic cup, informed me they are a few dollars short. Supposed to be 100, but she only give me 97. Vula, of course, is a repeat offender here. I ask myself, what the hell is the mentality of someone who can blow hundreds of dollars repeatedly night after night, week after week, and then get all impatient and pissed off when they lose a few dollars extra as the machine pays them out in coins? My response, of course, varies with the patron in question, and so naturally, because it's Vula, and she is my favourite customer, the same way root canal without anaesthetic is my preferred way to spend a Friday afternoon, I draw the process out as much as I can. I open the door as she stands on the other side of it, and I pretend to look over a few things, even though I know exactly where the coins are. And since she's standing there, huffing and sighing dramatically, since I'm cutting into her playing time here, I decide to really draw it out. In the end, I grab her 3 coins from the bottom of the machine, and since a few extra have collected there as well, I pick these up too. 3 in Vula's cup, 3 in my closed fist as I close the door and turn the key, and voila! Everyone's happy and no one saw a thing. And the question begins buzzing inside my head like an invisible mosquito I can't swat away, those words over and over playing in my thoughts. What's it going to take for someone to get kicked out of this place? I pass by the machine Angry Joe assaulted then, and there's a reserve sign over the broken screen that has been taped down with sticky tape. You've got to be fucking kidding me. I don't know how Newman plans on explaining this one to Christine, but whatever he comes up with, it'd better be bloody good for his sake. I'm pretty sure he's close to 3 strikes incident-wise. I think also about what Luke said to me, about him ordering something with Newman's credit card. What could he have possibly wanted so badly that he'd take that kind of risk? As I do my rounds, I spot an older lady playing Where's the Gold? And she looks up at me and squints at me through Coke bottle-thick glasses. What do I do here? She asks in a particularly annoying and nasal voice, and I explain to her about how the buttons work and how she has to pick a character. So she picks one, and in the end, she winds up with 2 free games and 1 wild symbol as well. Sweet fuck all, in other words. I'm about to leave, but then she has the nerve to say, "Oh, well, that's not very good, is it? This thing doesn't pay out at all." And I feel obligated to go through my won $250 off 3 spins at this machine at Crown Casino Story, just for good measure. "Really?" she asks in the same annoying tone. "Well, maybe I'll just try another $50. You never know your luck, do you?" I always knew that story would be inspirational sooner or later. As for her luck, on the other hand, it takes all of my considerable willpower not to point at the automatic exit doors to the club and exclaim loudly, "Oh, look, I just saw your luck exiting the building as you made that decision to put in another 50. And wouldn't you know it, it's holding hands with his good friends, logic and common sense. Well, I suppose we won't be needing them around here now, will we?" I look over at the Kano girls as they make their way around the place passing out tickets and information and making small talk with the customers. How difficult it must be to wear those fake toothy grins the whole time when I'm sure they know the guys are just ogling their tits and pretending to listen. "Oh yeah," one old guy is saying as I watch. 7 numbers and I get a chance to win $1 million. Sounds great. I'll definitely take a ticket. But I know for a fact this guy isn't paying for anything. Hell, they kicked up a fuss when management suggested all customers pay $1 for each coffee and that the proceeds would go to Canteen, a charity for children with cancer. They responded with an overwhelming and unanimous hell no, and the idea was scrapped. Just goes to show how truly fucked up their generation's moral compass has become, when they'd rather feed a machine that serves less purpose in their lives than a goddamn parking meter than help out kids with cancer. to hell with them all, I say. Though, as I look around, the demographics are definitely changing. Far from being simply a retreat for baby boomers who wish not to be home when the Grim Reaper comes a-knocking now. Pokey places are also somewhere younger people are hanging out. I have to check the odd mug punter for ID tonight as I make my rounds, and I seriously wonder why the hell they're here. Admittedly, the booze here is somewhat cheaper than it is at a typical nightclub, that's for sure. But I'm also just as certain of the fact that most of the young mug punters, like the old ones, will lose just as much in the machines either way. This is one of the few things that still really irks me and gets to me in the industry. That is when people my age and younger are getting sucked into the fad of playing these stupid machines. Playing video games, I can understand. I do it myself and enjoy the hell out of it, but I've yet to see a person young or otherwise shell out a few $100 in a night to play Grand Theft Auto V or blow their children's inheritance on a PS4. Just doesn't happen. My shift ends not with a bang as I'd have thought given the violent way it started thanks to Angry Joe's little outburst with the machine, but instead a considerable amount of silent whimpering from me as I head out to the car park. I look up at the sky as it darkens and spot the lightning off in the distance. Already the rain is beginning to come down on me here. A perfect finish to a perfect night. As I chew some gum, I pull out my trusty black book and scan my finger down the list of cars and license plate numbers. I look around as if I'm trying to remember where I parked, then casually stroll over to beside Angry Joe's car, kneel down to do up my shoelaces, and as I'm doing this, I undo the cap on a tire valve and jam a small stick inside. Air starts hissing out quickly and I get to my feet, dust myself off and look around at the empty car park lit up by the odd streetlight. For once, I really am glad that the club's management care so little about our security the moment we walk out the doors that they still haven't bothered to put security cameras out here. If Newman wants to try and placate Angry Joe and look like a weak pussy in front of the customers, that's his business. As long as I have my little black book, I'll always find a way to hold the prick accountable. Well, my version of accountable anyway. As for dealing with Newman himself, I find nothing expresses your feelings for another person quite like a flat tire here and there or like pouring sugar in their gas tank. With Newman's niece Chloe, it seems only fitting she receives some of the same treatment as well. Because luck may be a fickle and random lady, but I think sometimes every now and again, karma needs a helping hand to do the job properly.